Crystal released a video discussing whether future installments of the Persona franchise should have adults as part of the main cast. Opinions were varied. Some believe that the themes of Persona resonate more with the teenage cast rather than adults. Others believe that it would be a great way to switch up the formula of the games and would have a lot of potential. Others still would not care either way. As long as the franchise retains its excellent storytelling and gameplay, they would not care if it featured high school students or adults. Then there were those who mentioned Persona 2. If you want my opinion on this matter, it is this. Persona's themes of self-discovery and forming connections can be explored in many ways, not just by teenagers in a high school setting, though having an adult cast would affect many factors from mechanics to tone. Crystal's video is pretty comprehensive in tackling the different opinions regarding this, and I really have nothing to contribute to this discussion. Instead, I want to speculate on what a modern Persona game with an all-adult cast would look like. We know what a Persona game with 1 or 2 adults would look like, that would be Strikers and Tactica. But what if the entire cast were adults? That would be a different beast entirely. If we assume a modern Persona game has the day-to-day modern life simulator as well as the dungeon exploration into the supernatural world, how would the game be adjusted if it was going to have an all-adult cast? I could talk about this topic all day, so to keep things focused, there are 3 points to this speculation. What kind of story would it be? How would the mechanics be modified to reflect an older cast? And finally, how would the themes of self-discovery be handled? I guess it goes saying that this video is purely speculative. Other content creators have tried this with other franchises like Pokemon, so I wanted to give it a shot. With that, here we go. There is an argument to be said that the themes and maybe the vibe of Persona makes more sense with a teenage cast. Many supernatural save-the-world stories are also coming-of-age stories for the young protagonists that undertake this journey. As they are tested time and time again, they are usually denied the support of adult guardians. This forces them to grow up quickly and learn to face the challenges that normally they would be protected from. I mention this because some fans think that Persona 5 would have made more sense if its protagonists were young adults rather than teenagers. In order to galvanize the Phantom Thieves to take matters into their own hands, many of the adults in the game are either incompetent or a jerk. This leads to some contrived story beats, most notably asking the student president of a high school to solve a crime? I know the principal is not a good person, but even that is stretching it. So we have this question now. If there was going to be a Persona game with an all-adult cast, what story would make more sense with an adult cast rather than a teenage cast? Well, if you use broad strokes and squint your eyes, there is a game that you could say is like a modern Persona with adults as the central characters. Or rather, it captures what people enjoy about Persona games, and that is Stardew Valley. Just as Persona provides the fantasy of having an active social life as a teenager, Stardew Valley serves the fantasy of being an active participant in a community that supports and appreciates you. There is even a little bit of exploration into the unknown, and this is where we can get the idea of what kind of story could be used. A neighborhood watch story. Stories of a community gathering together to defend their home is a staple in video games. Whether it is in other cozy games like Coral Island, or something with more drastic stakes like Neverwinter Nights 2, it is a story beat that doesn't get old. Perhaps a famous, or rather infamous example is Dragon Age 2. While some were disappointed that the grand sweeping epic of uniting the realms against an evil threatening to sweep the land was followed up with the adventures of the Neighborhood Watch, the game still had its charm. Kirkwall was the home of the main cast, and since they did not leave, they could see their actions have long-lasting effects for the city and its residents. While the Neighborhood Watch story does work with teenagers with shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there is a different gravity when the ones addressing the danger is the adults. For teenagers, keeping their family safe is a call to action. It is what can motivate them to face the dangers that they would normally run away from. But for adults, it is a fear that many of them grapple with regularly. Keeping their family and home safe is what motivates their day-to-day. To see their fears realized and be so much worse than what they imagined would just be devastating. Midnight Texas is about the town of Midnight, which is home to many dangerous entities like psychics, witches, vampires, and assassins. The town is a magnet for supernatural threats, and the stories revolve around the residents banding together to face whatever is menacing the town. Hunter the Reckoning and Hunter the Vigil are tabletop role-playing games about ordinary people that have just realized that the supernatural exists and have committed to combating them. These monsters have existed for millennia and are heavily entrenched in human society. They wield vast amounts of supernatural and political power. One faction of the Hunters, the Union, is an alliance of regular people who work together to defend their neighborhood. They know they cannot bring the fight to such an overwhelming enemy, but they can at least keep their own homes safe. With some grit, a bit of networking, and a lot of vigilantism, they hunt down these threats, go back to their homes and families, and go to sleep, because their blue-collar jobs will be waiting tomorrow morning. So we can see this kind of story can work well with an adult cast. With that narrative structure in mind, how would the mechanics be modified to better sell the story of the locals protecting their town? Well, one thing that has to be acknowledged is the lack of time. Adults cannot have the structured schedules of high school teenagers. Between work, chores, and other priorities, the daily grind can take up the entirety of the day. This can be an obstacle that the players have to contend with. On a particular day when the player wants to go dungeon diving, it is possible that some of the party members cannot commit due to scheduling conflicts. Why not make it worse? What if the party agrees on one day of the week to dedicate to the supernatural world, like say every Friday or Thursday? Not only is the player limited in which days they can go dungeon diving, but it is still possible some members of the party still cannot make it. Emergencies can happen, work could extend to overtime, or they could just feel unwell, similar to the stamina mechanic of Persona 3. Scheduling can be one of the biggest hurdles to socializing as an adult. Just ask anyone who plays Dungeons & Dragons. It is up to the player to decide whether to reschedule the expedition to a more favorable date or power through with who is available. This is actually where social link perks can come in. Investing in social links can allow the players to bypass some of these scheduling obstacles. A doctor social link can make sure the party members are healthy so they don't succumb to exhaustion so easily. A daycare worker social link can assist the party if the emergency is something child-related. They can look after the child, and this will allow the party member to participate in the expedition. These are just some examples of how the theme of forming bonds and the community coming together can be emphasized and expressed in game mechanics. The last point to be addressed is how would the theme of self-discovery be handled with an all-adult cast? Crystal said it best in her video, you grow more as an adult than as a teenager. Even as an adult, you are learning lessons that help shape your identity and personality. So what kind of personal character arcs would resonate more with adults than with teenagers? I won't pretend I'm an expert writer. Instead, I will use shows that have been able to tackle these themes in ways that have resonated not just with adults but with even those outside their intended audience. The Australian children's TV show Bluey has messages that were directed not to the kids watching the show, but to the parents who are watching it with their kids. The issues covered by the candy-colored dogs can be surprisingly mature. Everything from feeling insecure as a parent to disagreements to how children should be raised. It even tackles heavier subject matters like infertility and death. The way the show delivers its message is so effective that it strikes a chord even with the adults who don't have kids. It is no wonder the show has a significant adult fanbase. For adults without kids, you can take a look at the Sanrio show Aggretsuko. While it does center on the main character Retsuko and her struggles with office life, most of the characters in the show are going through something in their lives too. Learning how to open up to others, body image issues, lashing out at criticism, desiring marriage for all the wrong reasons, realizing that cultures are changing and that you may not have it in you to follow this change, these are just some of the issues that the different characters in the show go through. While many characters initially appear as office stereotypes, almost every character is shown to have a good reason why they act the way they do. Many of the storylines of Aggretsuko is about understanding the people around you, but also recognizing what your own faults are. The Legend of Vox Machina stands out in animation, not just for being an adult cartoon, but for also being a save-the-world narrative that does not star teenage characters. As such, the personal struggles of each member of the mercenary group are not connected to the themes of coming of age. Feeling shame about your past, acknowledging a neglectful parent, learning to let go of hate, finding new purpose in a role forced upon you, facing the consequences of your actions, and even just doubting yourself. These are just some of the struggles faced by the merry band of ne'er-do-wells. While the story is set in a high fantasy world, their struggles are very human and very familiar. It is no wonder that many fans have connected to these characters so strongly. With all of these examples across media, from cartoons to TV shows and even other video games, it is pretty clear. While the tone of the game would be different, as it should be, There are so many ways to create a story about adults struggling with their trauma, facing their demons, and learning to become stronger through the support of the people who care for them. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we love about the Persona games? Thanks for watching. This is just my speculation on how a game like this could work. How would you envision a modern Persona game with an all-adult cast? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas. Until our paths cross again, see you, traveler.